What's up? Welcome to Backend Stuff. I'm Jacob Blitzo, here to help you build tech for the future. Think about scalability, reliability, and cost. If you want to learn how to build scalable, production-ready APIs, hit that subscribe button now. Today, we are using Guardian to set up authentication for our project. Guardian is a token-based authentication library for Elixir applications. The core currency of authentication in Guardian is the token. By default, it will use the JSON web token, and we will use these tokens to authenticate web endpoints in this project. So let's go ahead and open up our project, Real Deal API. So what we need to do first is we need to open up our mix.exs file. And we're going to have to add two dependencies here. We need Guardian and we need Bcrypt. And Bcrypt is a password hashing library for Elixir. So this will help us take the password from the user logging in, we hash it, and that's the value we store. We never store a readable password that we receive from the front end. Comma, and then let's go ahead and do a curly brace, colon, and we'll do Guardian, comma, quotation, and then tilde, greater than, and the current version of Guardian is 2.3. And you can find that if you Google Guardian Elixir, you'll pull up the Elixir docs or the GitHub version, and you can walk through that documentation. And then we also need colon Bcrypt underscore Elixir. And then this version, so tilde greater than, we're going to use 3.0. All right, and now let's make sure we save it, Command S, and let's open up our terminal. And then we need a CD into our project. Mine is in Documents, Develop, BS, and then Real Deal API. And we just need to run mix space deps.git to install our new dependencies. All right, and now that that's done, let's go back into VS Code. And we need to create an implementation module, which includes Guardian's functionality and the code for encoding and decoding our tokens values. So let's go ahead and expand the lib directory, expand the Real Deal API web directory, and let's make a new directory in this called auth. So new folder, AUTH. And then inside the auth, let's do new file and call this guardian.ex. All right. And then we just have to create the module. So def module, and then it'll autocomplete for you. But if it doesn't, real deal API web.auth.guardian. We need to have access to Guardian. So we are going to use, we're going to say use Guardian, comma, and then we need to name our project name, so we're going to do OTP underscore app colon space, and then do colon, because it's going to be an atom, real deal underscore API. All right. And then we're going to include an alias, so we have access to our account's context file. So we need to do real deal API dot accounts, and this is our context. So this is what will insert and query the database table accounts for us, that file. And we'll be diving into that in a little bit once we're done here. All right, so if we pull up documentation for Guardian, we are going to find, let me just pull this over here. This is the implementation file we're going to be including. So we're going to add subject for token, resource from claims, and then we're also, towards the end of this video, we'll be adding some authentication functions. Let's first do our def subject underscore for token, opening parentheses. We're going to pass in a JSON with an ID here. So we're going to do a percentage symbol, and then opening curly brace, so ID colon, and then our argument name is going to be ID, and then closing curly brace, comma, and then just do an underscore claims, because we don't need access to the claims object for this one, and then do end for opening and closing this function. our subject, so sub equals, we're going to convert the ID to a string. So to underscore string, and then pass in the ID. And then all we're going to do is return a tuple with an OK atom, and then our subject, which is now our ID in string form. And then we're also going to make another function called the same exact thing, but if we don't send anything, if we have an empty JSON and no claims, we're going to return an error. So we're going to do def subject for token, and then opening parentheses, underscore, comma, underscore, closing parentheses, do, and end. And then here we'll just go into return the error, comma, and then the reason for our error. In this case, we would probably say that no value or no ID provided. No ID provided. Okay, and then close the curly brace. And then we're going to make two more functions. And this one is going to be called def resource underscore from claims, opening parentheses, and then we're going to do the percentage symbol, curly brace, opening curly brace, and then do a quotation mark, a sub, closing quotation marks, and then equal, and then greater than. And so the subject from claims is going to be pushed into a variable called ID, and then close those curly braces, close those parentheses, and then do. And now here we're going to use our account ID in our token subject. Okay, so we'll be able to take the ID and grab our account, and then we can return the resource, which is our account object. Okay, so we're going to do a case statement here. So case, and then the alias accounts up here, we're going to use that now, and we're going to use accounts dot get account, and then pass in the ID here, and then say do. And if it's nil, we're going to return an error. So error, comma, just not found, because it returned nil to us. All right, and then if we get a value back, we will call it the resource, and then we will return a tuple with OK, and then the resource, which will be our account. All right, and then we're going to make a default. If no values are passed in, we will return an error like we did for subject to token. So def resource from claims, and then underscore claims, do to open and close the function, and then return an error. And the reason for error would be, let's just say no subject provided, or we could say no ID provided. Okay, same as above that way. All right, so that is all we need to do right now. So hit save. That's all we need to do for our implementation module currently. Now we have to pull up our config.exs file and set up Guardian. So our app actually knows to use Guardian. So if we want to just expand the config folder and then open up config.exs, and now down, it doesn't really matter where we'll stick it. We'll put it right under the logger here where our cursor already is. And we're just going to do config : real underscore deal underscore API, comma, and then real deal API web dot guardian. So we're just giving the path here to our Guardian implementation file. And then comma, and then I'm going to return, just to clean this up, and tab in. And then we have to provide an issuer. So issuer : and then this needs to be a string. So it's a string, but the name of our project, which is real underscore deal underscore API, and then close off those quotation marks, comma. And now we need to provide a secret key. And a secret key should be different for every environment that you build. So like if we have a development environment, a staging environment, production, we'll make an environment variable eventually, but just know that this should be a new value for every project that you have or every instance of your project. And the way we can create this secret key is, let's go to our terminal and make sure you're in your project directory, because we need access to mix. And we're going to just type in mix space guardian.gen.secret and then hit enter, and it's going to spit back. It's going to build our project, but then it's going to spit back a randomly generated secret key for us that we can grab and use. If you get a database error here, by the way, make sure that your Docker container is running. We might as well talk about that as we wait. So make sure your BSDB is running. If it's not, press play and then run that command again. All right, and here is our secret key generated. So what we're gonna do is just highlight that right here, Command C to copy, and then go over to our config folder. And we need this in quotations. So opening and closing quotations, and then paste that key and hit save. And there we go. We have our app now knows how to implement Guardian. Oh, I just realized I missed we need to do, so the real deal API, the first line here, we need .auth because it's in a directory .guardian. There we go. And then save that. And so we generated our secret key. Now we need to go to our account schema. So the account.ex file, and that's in the real deal API directory under accounts, and then open account.ex. And here we need to now, within our change set, we want to take the password when we create an account and we want to hash it, okay? Because we never want the same value the user sent to our API being stored in the database. That is no good. So underneath change set here, but above the last end, we're gonna make a private function, so def p, and then we'll call it put underscore password underscore hash, and then opening parentheses, we're going to use the ecto change set object here. So we need to do a %, and then type in capital E and then lowercase ecto dot capital C change set, okay? And this is calling the change set struct. And then we are going to do opening curly brace and then type in valid question mark colon. And if our change set is valid, so we want it to be true, then we're going to make these changes. So changes colon, and then we're going to do another % opening curly brace, and we're going to pass in our hash password. So hash underscore password colon, and then we want the variable name, we'll call it the same thing, hash underscore password, and then close that curly brace, and then close the first curly brace out. So we should have 2 curly braces, and then we want this to equal change set, okay? And then close the opening parentheses off and do a do, and then an end. And that is our function. And now what we're going to do is type in change, and then we want to pass in our change set, which is our variable, change set that we just created, comma, and then we need to pass in our hash password. So hash underscore password colon. All right, now this is where we would take the value from the user and we need to hash it, okay? So we're going to call Bcrypt here. So Bcrypt dot hash password salt is what we want. And then we're going to pass in our variable hash password, hash underscore password. And now this is going to change our object and return the password we sent in, which is probably a readable password, into a hash value. And then that will be the object created, and that will be inserted into our database. So let's make one more function here. If our change set is not valid, we want to just pass through the change set. So we're going to do def p put underscore password underscore hash. So the same name, and then pass in a change set, close those parentheses, comma, do, colon, and then we're just going to return the change set here. And now we want to call the put password hash up here in our change set. Underneath unique constraint email, you want to do the pipe operator, and we're just going to call put password hash. And then there we go. Save it. And now our account schema is set up to automatically hash our password when we create an account value or an account object. All right, now we need to head over to our accounts.ex context file. And we need to add a function there that's going to query our database using our email value instead of the ID. So let's go ahead and under the Real Deal API, and then this accounts.ex folder. All right, so we have currently get account by ID. We're going to make a function right underneath that, and let's document our function. It's important to keep these documented so you know what they do. So the @ symbol and then doc, and then so in between the 3 quotation marks, we're going to document what this function does. And it's going to say it gets a single account, okay, and it returns nil if the account does not exist. And then you want to put examples in here. So if someone's looking through your code base, or if you use the document generator that Elixir has, you can see how this function is actually used. So let's do a $, double $, and then space, capital examples. All right, and then return twice, and then tab over. We're going to do IEX greater than symbol, space, get underscore account underscore by underscore email. And then we're going to pass in a test at email.com. All right, and then this is going to return a account struct. And that is how we would show it there. And now let's show a failing example, right? So return again, and we're going to do IEX greater than space get account by underscore email. And then we'll just call this no underscore account at email.com. So if there is no account with the email we're looking for, you would show what would get returned here. And in our case, it's just going to be nil. All right, so now that that's documented, we can now create our function. Let's do def space get underscore account underscore by underscore email. And you always want to be as descriptive as possible by your names. So get account by email is pretty straightforward, and you know what that means. And then the argument it's going to take is the email address, and then do, and then end. All right, now in our function, now we need to query for the email value. And so we had to start by naming our account schema, so we know what table we're querying, okay? And then, so we're just gonna type account, capital A, account, and then return, and then the pipe operator. And now this is how we query. We type in where, and then opening parentheses, the value that you're querying, which is email, colon, and then we're passing in the variable email, and hit that with the caret email, and then close those parentheses off. And now one more pipe operator. We're only going to get one value because emails are unique in our database table. So repo.1. And if we did repo.all, it would give us a list with one value in it. This way we only get one object back instead of a list. All right, so now we have our function that will return accounts by an email address. Now let's go back to our Guardian file that we created and add some authentication here. So at the very bottom, underneath resource for claims, we're going to add a public function called authenticate that's going to take an email and a password. So def, and we'll just call it authenticate, and then opening parentheses, we're going to pass in an email and a password. Closing parentheses, do. And now we want to use the function we just wrote in our context file. And we're going to have this in a case statement. So case, and then we're going to call accounts get account by email. And here we're going to pass in the email parameter and then close parentheses. And then we need to do a do to start this case statement. If there is no value, we get nil back, right? So if this value is nil, we are going to return a tuple, an error though, comma, and then we'll just return a unauthorized atom, okay, inside this tuple. So now, if there is a value, we're going to call it account. With this account, now we need to validate our password. So we need to create a private function inside of the guardian.ex file that will take our password and match it to the hash password, okay? So let's just go underneath our authenticate function we just started, and let's do a def p, because it's a private function, and we'll call this validate underscore password. And then we'll do an opening parentheses, and we'll pass in our password that the user sent to log in, right? And then we want to compare it to our hash underscore password, which is stored in our database. So when we retrieve our account with the email, we have the hash password. All right, and then close those parentheses, do and end. And now Bcrypt has a built-in verify pass function. So we're going to do Bcrypt dot verify pass, and then it takes two parameters: the password sent by the user, and we called that password, comma, and then the stored hash, which is called hash underscore password, and then close those parentheses and save it there. Once we get our account, we're going to just return and have it nested underneath here. We're going to do another case statement. So case, and now we're going to call our validate password function. So validate password, and we're going to pass in the password that we got from the user right here, and then comma, then we're going to take account, the object we just got from get account by ID, and we're going to say dot hash underscore password to grab that value out of account, close off the parentheses, do, and now within our case statement here, our validate or our verify.pass, so the validate pass returns a true or a false. So if it's true, we want to return our JSON web token. If it's false, that means the password does not match. So it's an incorrect password. So we want to return an error and say they're unauthorized. All right, now we need to create a function that will create our token for this account. So underneath our validate password, let's make one more private function called def p, and this is going to be called create token. So this is where we're generating our token. We're going to pass in the whole account object, or struct, I should say. All right, and then close parentheses, do. And now we want to use Guardian to encode and sign. And then that, when we encode and sign, that is the token, okay? So we're going to just do the built-in function encode and sign will return a tuple called OK, comma, and then our token, and then claims, which we don't need, so we're going to put an underscore in front of it. So it's returning 3 values to us, and we're going to set this equal. So encode underscore and underscore sign is a built-in Guardian function, and we're just passing in our account object. Once we get this, we want to take our token and return it with our account. So we have everything, okay? So now let's just create our own tuple. So, okay, we are gonna return our account object and our token object. So when we authenticate an account, we're returning the account object, which is our email and hash password. And then we're also returning the JSON web token that we just generated. So now up here in our authenticate function, if the password is valid, it is true, we want to create our token. So create token and pass in the account struct and then save it. All right, we did a lot there. We did a lot fast, but we have the basics to authentication and the ability now to generate a JSON web token for a user to log in. So let's test our code now. We will insert a new account into our database, and this will test our change set to make sure the value is getting hashed and all of that good stuff. And then we'll go from, and then we'll test our authenticate function to see if it, says that we're unauthorized, or it returns our JSON web token. So let's pull up our terminal and let's go ahead and spin up the Elixir shell. IEX space dash capital S space mix. Okay, so now we can create our account. So we want to call our real deal API dot accounts dot create account, and then opening parentheses, percent symbol, and then opening curly brace. And to create an account, we need our email value. So email colon space, and then we can send in a string. So quotation, let's call this first underscore account at test.com, and then close those quotation marks, comma, and then we can pass in our password, which is hash underscore password colon, and we want to send another string in, and we can call this just r underscore password, and then close off the curly brace, and then close our closing parentheses. Now, when we hit enter, we should see our account object returned, and our hash password should not be that readable password because we're hashing it in the change set. So hit enter, and then there we go. So we got our object back. So we have our account ID, that email, and now look, our hash password does not say our password. So it's been successfully hashed, which is really pretty dang cool. All right, so now that account's created, we should be able to log in with using our authenticate function we just created. Well, we're not going to be logging in, but we're going to be getting our web token, which we'll be using to authenticate access to lockdown endpoints in the upcoming videos. Here, we have to just get to our authenticate function, which is real deal API web.auth.guardian.authenticate. And then it takes two parameters, if you remember, our email and our password. So we got to send in string values. So first underscore account at test.com, close those quotations off. That is our email address for the account we just created, comma, and then we want to send in our password string, which is r underscore password, close off those parentheses, and now hit enter. There we go. So we logged in and we got our account object back. So we see our email, the hash password value. We could have a preloaded user object here, which we'll be getting into. And then we see when the object was inserted and updated. And now after that, you see our JSON web token. So that is pretty cool. So now we have this authentication web token that we would use to access locked down endpoints. This proves who we are and we have access to this account, right? Let's go ahead and just make our password wrong now. So delete a couple characters from that string and hit enter. And now we get our error unauthorized. So our authentication code with Guardian and Bcrypt is working. So what did we do? We set up authentication with a JSON web token using Guardian and Bcrypt. We hashed the account's password in our account schema before it gets inserted into the database. We then created an authenticate function that queries an account by email, and then we match the password with the hashed value. And if it matches, we generate a JSON web token, which we will use to give the account access to lockdown endpoints very soon. So that's pretty dope. As always, if you need help or want to check out the solutions, check out that GitHub link in the description below. And if you have more questions or just want to hang out and chat, join my Discord server, Backend Stuff. That link is in the description as well. If you want to learn how to build scalable, production-ready APIs, hit that subscribe button now. See you next time.